Good afternoon and welcome to today's live chat. I'm Rebecca Fuhr. There's still plenty of time to get your questions in for today's live chat. Send them to DOC_questions. We have executive staff from every division with us to answer your questions today, and to protect your privacy, I'm only going to read your question today. I'm not going to read your name. And if you ever want to go back and rewatch any of these live chats, I always post the recording on the front page of DocNet under Executive Director Live Chats. As always, if you do not hear your question on today's chat, it could be that our directors needed just a little bit more time to form a response, but rest assured, I'm still going to ask your question, but I'm going to move it to the next month to give them just a little bit more time for that response. Good afternoon, Director Stansel. There were a lot of questions directed your way today.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I see that. I'm excited about it. So
been moving a few around, but I'll just start right in on them then. What is our executive staff? Why doesn't our executive staff give updates on what each areas are doing like they used to in these live chats?
Yeah, like the question suggests, we used to do that. What we found is by doing that, we were taking up a lot of time and we weren't able to get to all the questions. And we're starting to get way more questions now than we were originally. But if that is something that staff want, is us to go back to doing a brief, departmental update, we're not opposed to doing that. But the shift was just so we could try to get more questions in, because like most of our philosophy, and we'll say it when we go out to the facilities and everywhere, is we really want to talk about what staff want to hear. So a lot of times when we're just giving general updates, it's really not what staff want to hear. The best way to address what staff, to say what staff wants to hear, is for us to let the questions dictate the agenda. But if that's not something that staff want and they want us to write the other way, then we're open to that too. So take advantage, let Rebecca know. You can shoot an email to me, anybody on this call. Just let us know what your preference is, and we're always wanting to make sure we're doing what staff want.
Absolutely. They can always utilize the DOC_questions to send those in as well. So let's move on to the next question. There's been multiple news articles that the DOC is under DOJ investigation. Is there an update on the status of that? And will staff be notified of the results?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. It is correct. DOJ has stated that they're going to investigate the department. And that's a very lengthy process. It's not one that I'm going to try to explain here, but this is not a 2-month, 3-month process. So initially, I give you the first couple of steps and let you know where we are. We just had an update on this today during the exec team. Is initially they let us know that they have a desire to investigate us, which they've already done that, and then they would start some sort of conversation with the Attorney General's office, who is our attorneys. And then they'll get a cadence of, how do we figure out what it is they're actually looking into. Some of the topics are some of the things that were in the media already, the alleged starvation of the youth at YOS, which we're not doing, and some of the other things that have come up. So mostly what we think they're going to look at, and it's just basic preliminary stuff, is we think they're going to look at a lot of what's already in the media. Now, what I want to say is the same thing the team talked about today. Any correctional department you investigate, you can find issues, because no department gets it perfect, none. And the other thing I want to bring up, this is not the first time we've had a DOJ investigation. And if more questions I want to know about that, please feel free to ask, and Adrian can update more. But again, for the sake of getting to all the questions, we'll save that for if someone wants to know. But these are pretty, I don't want to say standard. They're never fun, but it's just a normal part of what DOJ does. And what they're basically looking at is to see if we are violating anyone's civil rights. And I don't believe that's occurring. And if there's anybody out there that thinks it is occurring, then please let me know. 719-726-3836. First time I ever gave out my number on a monthly chat. But if you know that there are violations going on, please say something now.
You heard it here first. Let's move on to the Department of the Policy and Legislative Affairs, Director Adrian Sanchez. Good afternoon to you.
Hey, Rebecca, how are you?
I'm well. It appears the parole board and the department lack collaboration from the JBC hearing. How is that being addressed?
So first I want to say thank you for listening to or watching the JBC hearing. Really glad to hear that you were engaged and that there are feedback questions from that. So the department is fully committed to a positive and productive relationship with the State Board of Parole, despite any potential challenges raised during the recent JBC hearing. Both the department and the board share the common goals of successful reentry and ensuring individuals have necessary support systems upon release. And the department maintains ongoing dialogue with the parole board to identify and resolve operational issues, including any issues that may have been identified through the public hearings process.
Thank you. The Strategic Planning Committee falls underneath you. I'll ask you this question. Given repeated Joint Budget Committee concerns surrounding persistent lack of a comprehensive strategic plan, when will DOC leadership recognize the need and take meaningful action to develop one?
Yes, thank you for this, Rebecca. So yes, it's true. DOC's strategic direction does incorporate the governor's wildly important goals, WIGs, as we all know them, to improve our outcomes. This is only one part of our strategic plan. We also have an internal strategic plan that was developed with broad input from all levels of staff. Furthermore, we recently received a completed facility master plan, which was conducted by an external entity, which is going to provide neutral strategic guidance on the future use of our facilities. While this master plan is not fully finalized yet, once it is, we will get it out to you all. So in addition to these overarching plans, each facility develops a management planning document, which is reviewed by the administration for specific planning purposes. So while we recognize that with multiple strategic planning documents, there may be a persistent difference between CDOC's internal priorities and what the JBC specifically requests. Our challenge is that the JBC often seeks a plan designed to address their exact questions and concerns rather than one that's focused on our existing internal priorities. So there's sometimes disconnect.
Thank you for that lesson. Strategic planning, as you know, involves a lot of different documents for development, but reputable organizations and agencies have written public strategic plans. This helps all stakeholders, internal and external, follow along as to what the agency is trying to accomplish over multiple years. How is the individual budget request fit into that overall plan?
So we do understand the importance of clearly articulating our strategic direction and narrative in a readily accessible format, and recognize that the current strategic planning information is spread across multiple documents and in multiple locations. So we're actively exploring ways to make this information more readily accessible to both our staff and stakeholders, and we'll provide an update once a solution is available. That said, in the meantime, for the most current information regarding our goals and performance, you can go to our external facing website, the Colorado Department of Corrections website, and navigate to the About section and the Data and Reports section. And from there, you're able to see our performance plan, access to the governor's WIGs, and our regulatory agenda for some insight into legislative implementation.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sanchez. Let's turn our direction over to Prison Operations. Director Mark Fairbairn is with us today. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Rebecca.
Why do we not have metal detectors at headquarters as the previous building did?
Okay, so we're continually assessing security levels, not only at our facilities, but our public-facing buildings, parole offices, headquarters. And we've recently looked into this. One, the importance of the metal detectors inside facilities is because of the offenders that are in them and getting things into that offender population. Where here at headquarters is more of a public-facing building with very limited offender access. Now, we have looked at it as part of what it could prevent, but with the ability of our security doors at headquarters, at this time we think that we could use a more viable purchase to use them in a facility more than headquarters, but this doesn't say that we would not look at it. Again, this is one of those questions that if somebody has a scenario, something maybe we haven't thought of, please bring it to the prison operations team that is overseeing that security post, and we can talk through it. It may be something we haven't considered. So.
Thank you. With all the negative news stories, does it really make sense to post reentry staff in facilities instead of focusing on good parole plans and resources?
So you're absolutely right that focusing on good parole plans and resources is crucial. And it's crucial to the reentry of offenders, and release case managers are a very vital part of this. We do, however, need to continue to balance the entire operational needs to ensure that offender safety and success as well. So the current plan utilization of the release case managers to aid with facility staffing will help ensure that staffing resources are able to support programming, but it also helps them access services for everyone. So really, it's going to play a dual purpose.
Thank you. This next question says, as at many facilities, staff are required to work multiple double shifts per week. Is the department looking for options to mitigate the mandatory holdovers? If so, what are options that are available? If not, what is the department looking to do to prevent staff burnout?
So again, and this kind of goes back to the last question, we're utilizing our current overtime mitigation plan that allows us to both modify operations and identify and utilize those support staff to help cover those posts. And those help us reduce those mandatory holdovers. I think one of the biggest things we could talk about though too is we underwent an extensive review with NIC and staffing analysis to identify extra staffing levels that may be needed in facilities to help cover positions and posts. I think the biggest thing though that needs to be said is that we can all help each other mitigate these needs. And that's just by one, ensuring you're coming to work and protecting your own leave. So you have it in the event of a serious illness or injury. So if all staff familiarize themselves with the administrative regulations, including employee scheduling, use of leave, and internal movement and staffing plan, I think that's the biggest key to mitigating that overtime.
Thank you. The DRDC clinic has 2 bathrooms for employees, and one of them has been missing a ceiling for over a year now. Despite requests to get this repaired, it remains open with pipes and wires exposed. Could you help shed light on the best way to address this issue?
Yeah, so DRDC administration and maintenance is aware of this issue. The particular leak actually stems from the infirmary mental health cells. When they flood the cells above that area, it causes that area to leak. So they've been exploring different ideas to mitigate this and repair it. One of them is installing different material to include a plastic ceiling tile, and those parts are on order and should be delivered shortly for repair.
Thank you. Can you please let us know what critical staff is? I work in a non-essential position, and our facility tells us our resource days, we are required to report to work. By policy, it looks like we are exactly the definition.
So, and I know this question has came up before, but really the definition by policy of a critical position is a position that's determined as critical to the operations of that facility. And it doesn't matter if you're exempt or non-exempt. You're expected to work at your work site, whether delayed start, release, or closure situation. So just because you're non-exempt or exempt doesn't, the wording of a critical position says you're critical to the operations of that facility. And a critical staffing need is a short staffing, call-off, insufficient staff to meet minimum staffing requirements. So again, it sounds like this person though has a specific question about their classification and being deemed critical. So I would encourage them to talk to their appointing authority about that, reach out to HR or myself or one of the deputies in prison ops.
Thank you, sir. If you'll stick around with us, I'm sure at the end we'll have some rapid fire questions for you, but let's move over to Human Resources with Director Michelle Cunningham. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca.
The new pay calculator has led to situations in which staff members who were offered promotions declined them because the new calculations resulted in a pay decrease. I know this has been asked in previous live chats, and the standard answer is that we do not have money to right size everyone. But what is the strategic plan moving forward to address this?
It's a great question. As you mentioned, this has been addressed in the past, and we recognize that the scenarios presented have caused frustration, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide clarification. The current pay plan per DPA allows credit for time and series, which provides credit to offer higher than base pay. CDOC's current policy 1450-60 allows us to provide credit for related relevant experience. Because every situation involves unique considerations, a blanket response cannot cover all scenarios. However, please keep the following in mind. Applicants need to complete a thorough application that clearly details all experience related to the position in which they are applying for. This is the only information that is reviewed for providing full or partial credit towards the salary calculation. If it's not clear on the application, credit will not be provided. Information provided in a resume and responses to supplemental questions also will not be considered. So really need some attention to detail on that application. A promotion also doesn't guarantee an increase in salary. Employees who have spent significant time in a specific career path may have a base salary that already exceeds the calculated rate for a new position, especially when moving to a different career path where previous experience may not directly apply. Keep in mind, under the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act, you have to have approved allowable factors to demonstrate pay differences. We are committed to providing credit for time and series and related experience whenever possible, but this does not always result in a pay increase. We agree that our staff are our greatest resource. We continue to advocate for the best possible compensation within our budget limitations. While right sizing remains a priority, we must continue to work with our current resources. Leadership will address classification corrections as budget allows, prioritizing them when funding becomes available. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Tracy Reese, one of our HR managers.
Thank you. Can we please publicly encourage people who are not feeling well and have active symptoms to not report to headquarters or their respective facilities?
Maintaining a healthy environment is a priority for all of us. And pursuant to state personnel board rules and our administrative regulations, sick leave is specifically provided for instances where an illness or injury prevents an employee from performing their assigned duties. While we certainly don't want illness spreading through our facilities, headquarters, school offices, or any other areas, it's equally important to remember that our operations depend on every team member being present when they are able. We ask that staff use their leave responsibly and in strict accordance with policy so we can ensure both a healthy workplace and that staffing levels necessary to keep our areas of responsibility are safe and functional.
Thank you. What exceptions can be made by the appointing authority to approve either 100% remote or working at a closer location to home outside of an ADA accommodation?
So regarding requests for fully remote arrangements or the use of a satellite office, note that 100% remote generally is not approved as it is impactful to operations. Staff are informed of their designated work location upon accepting a position, and while remote work and hybrid schedules are not guaranteed by DOC, we understand that staff may have unique circumstances. Given the current limitations in office space and alternative locations, we encourage you, the staff, to consult with your appointing authority to discuss any specific concerns or requests that you may have.
A recent email went out to DOC-wide to participate in a one-voice survey. How will those results be shared?
Another great question. First, I want to extend a sincere thank you to everyone who took the time to participate in the One Voice survey, because your feedback is vital. Regarding the results, the department and co-wins will receive data in a summarized format to ensure all participants are anonymous. And once we have that summary in hand, our next step will be a thorough review and analyzing the feedback. Ultimately, our goal is to utilize the findings to inform meaningful action plans.
Thank you. Many divisions have participated in cultural assessments recently. What are the actionable items being discussed to improve culture, and what is the overall theme of the outcomes?
Another great question. Our culture coach is actually out of the office this week conducting an assessment. So next month, we'll make sure and provide a response regarding actionable items and overall themes.
Thank you. That does happen from time to time. So I'll just move the question to next month and I'll ask it again. What is the current average cost to train a new staff member?
Due to many different variables, there is not a one-size-fits-all answer to this complex question. Cost associated with training a new staff member depends on a variety of items, such as, are they a uniformed staff member? Are they eligible for lodging per AR 1500-02? And depending on where they are assigned, as well as job classification. And their required additional training, for example, parole, IG's office, clinical, to name just a few. So the training for a non-uniformed staff at HQ would vary considerably from a uniformed staff member assigned to Sterling. We are always looking for opportunities to provide training to new staff in the most cost-effective manner while maintaining meaningful learning opportunities that take advantage of adult learning best practices.
Thank you. Why are supervisors not trained on how to help employees utilize mental health services? If they're supposed to be trained, why is it commonplace across the department for supervisors to use the line, "Remember, we always have CTCF," and then not follow through on helping the employee?
So supervisors are being trained. But of course, in a department of this size and complexity, training alone does not automatically translate into confidence and consistent practice. For many years, CTCF was the primary resource, and it is the one universal option that is known department-wide. In addition, I want to remind you that the wellness team offers support through their Wellness Hub chat. They also have a dedicated 24/7 wellness line where staff may call for support and speak directly to our team, as well as the Portico website and app, which is available to all staff and their families, both in the facility as well as the app when home. So I would encourage staff to reach out to DOC Wellness at DOC_wellness at state.colorado.us or 719-269-4696.
Thank you. This question goes right along with that. Why are more money and resources not used for staff mental health after the department has seen proof of need for over a decade now?
So the mental health of our teams is vital to the strength of our organization and the outcomes that we each work to provide. We have invested heavily to support our teams with the addition of the Portico app and recently the Portico website, which is available again at the facility, as well as both Cigna and Kaiser offer a variety of support options that are available at zero cost and complement the offerings for our internal employee peer support program, volunteer staff chaplains, retention coaches, and the work of our wellness team. Again, I would encourage staff to contact the benefits email address or the phone number I provided, along with employee benefits unit manager Kim Bird.
Thank you so much, Director. Let's move over to Finance and Administration. Director Mitch Karstens, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Why can't all staff have their comp time paid out when they want to? And can the non-exempt comp time rule be changed? By allowing this, more non-exempt employees will volunteer to pick up shifts and help with the workload that Blue staff has to carry.
Yeah, so we've kind of talked about this a number of times. The general guidelines that we've mentioned is the 60-hour threshold, which is found in AR 1450-14, which does allow for the flexibility of those times and the facility needs at each of those facilities. There's a couple of different components to this. So one is that the correctional officer series is exempt from that. And we look at the 14-hour day work period or 14-day work period as we go through that and the compulsory time that goes with that. There's also some discretion from the appointing authority on the balances that are under 60 hours and how those are paid out. Again, that is outlined in the AR 1450-14. And those forms can be submitted on the AA's side and approved to pay out. I know this is a complicated one. If you have a specific question about like your role and how that plays into the 1450-05 or an example that you'd like us to speak to, I think reach out to myself, or payroll is a great a great resource to be able to do that. But we continue to monitor the process and the policy around this and make edits as needed to best serve the department.
Thank you. Due to budget concerns, there'll be no retention incentives offered this year. However, after listening to the JBC, it seems the JBC would be open to continuing incentives for staff in order to save money in the long term and retain staff rather than spending more money on new hires continually. So why were incentives at least proposed in the budget? Why are incentives to keep them from leaving one of the first things on the chopping block?
Yeah, so the budget and balancing the budget, I hope everybody understands, is a very complex problem and challenge every single year with the budget constraints that the department has and the state has. We continue to work with JBC and the Office of State Budget and Planning, or OSPB, which is the governor's budget office, on how to balance and what those incentives look like. We need to continue to bring forward data on how those incentives are beneficial and how they either retain or don't retain or recruit or not recruit individuals to the department. So we're continuing to work on that data as we get that and submit new ideas. I would say just because it wasn't brought up at JBC does not mean we are not working on it. We are, and we continue to work on that a lot, on what the incentives are and what the ones are that are going to move the needle to help retain and recruit individuals to the department. But there is a large budgetary component to that the state and DOC both need to take into account.
Thank you. This person says, I am a new employee and I work 4 10-hour days. For every day that is either holiday or governor's holiday, I have to use 2 hours of my personal vacation time in order to submit a 10-hour work shift. Since I only earn 8 hours vacation a month, I feel like I'm not making much headway for a vacation. I'm looking for suggestions or insights that I may have missed.
Yeah, so this is another great question. So as you've pointed out, the standard vacation holiday is 8 hours of value. And so if you are on 10s, there is a 2-hour gap that needs to be filled through that process. There's a couple of different ways to do this. So as you talked about, you can fill in with vacation time. There are other options to adjust your work schedule and your flexing time during that week. So that might look like that you're working to 11-hour days, 1 10-hour day plus an 8-hour holiday to reach your 40-hour requirement. There's also temporary schedule revisions that can happen within a 2-week period based on the parameters of your role and what that looks like. So there is some different options, and I would encourage you to speak with your supervisor, or if your supervisor maybe doesn't know about some of those options, have them reach out to payroll. Again, great resource over in payroll to kind of talk about that. And we kind of look at that throughout the course of the year. So.
Absolutely. Thank you. Let's go back to the budget for a second. The governor's budget, if approved, includes a 3.1% raise for state employees and funding to continue the STEP program. If the governor's budget is approved, will staff be advised if they qualify for that STEP pay?
Yes, they will be. So we go through the process. Obviously, the budget has a long road still ahead to be able to get passed in the long bill. But once it is being completed, communication does go out from both DPA and HR, and you'll see that information coming out on step increases as well as the 3.1% if that is approved. So all that information will come much later in the year. Generally, we start to see those end of April, beginning of May is when the long bill starts to kind of really get finalized and pass through. So that's when we'll start to see those.
Thank you. Would you help clear up a rumor for us? Did DOC acquire the lease next door where CTA is at?
So we currently do have a lease where CTA currently is. We've had that lease. CTA moved up a little over a year ago. I think this question might be asking, are we acquiring more space in that building? And we are working through and evaluating some options with our real estate broker on leases in Colorado Springs as a whole. And that is part of that evaluation that we are currently doing, but we have not signed anything for that yet.
Thank you. When will DOC know the results of our funding request from the JBC?
Yeah, so there's two components to this. Our general request that we have for FY 28 or 27, sorry, that it will start July 1st. That will come out in our long bill. That generally happens around April. We will get a good understanding of what that is. Long bills usually signed early May. Supplementals, so those are requests to change this current fiscal year. Those conversations should start happening in February, and we should get some answers in late February, early March on those. As always, we will continue to send out to the doc hall email when JBC is meeting and their hearings with DOC so that the department can stay informed of the conversations we're having on that and when those decisions happen.
Thank you. We always have a ton of questions for you, so if you'll stick around, I'm sure we'll have some more. But for now, let's run over to Clinical Services Director Lacey Monday. Good afternoon.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi. What is the current plan, or ETA, to have a methadone program built that is not based out of DRDC? And if there is an active plan to relocate the primary MAP program to a permanent DOC facility that is better able to accommodate the programming needs, if so, what is the ETA or timeline to establish it or reopen it?
Okay, so DRDC is the Opioid Treatment Program. So it will remain there because of licensing and accreditation purposes. However, we have expanded methadone. A very small group of inmates have been transferred out of DRDC that are on methadone. So we have a handful at Sterling, and then we have one at CCF. We have applied to remodel the CTCF medroom, which will allow us to have a southern hub for a methadone clinic. As you know, applying for grants takes some time, being awarded a grant takes some time, and then the implementation will take some time. So we're hoping if we do get that grant, that it'll take approximately a year to do all the things we have to do in order to implement that. But we know that that's a problem. It's not just specific to this question, but in general, we would like to have more housing at DRDC, and because of the methadone piece, we know that we have a lot of folks there.
Thank you. What is the plan to address offenders who are tabled or deferred for parole due to program requirements that are not available to them? Specifically, offenders who are at the DRDC only methadone that are required to participate in complete TC programming to meet their tabled conditions, as TC is not an available program at DRDC.
So I'm assuming this person submitted both of these questions. And I really appreciate these questions because they're looking at things from a perspective that we are too, but just implementation takes a little bit longer than we would like. So individuals that need TC are placed on the GRL regardless of where they're housed. And I do know that when they're at DRDC, they do not have the opportunity to go to TC. However, they are provided with behavioral health programming. And this includes individual and group counseling as well as peer support recovery groups. We do have a meeting next month. Well, our substance use disorder administrator is meeting with the parole board next month just to talk about some of these challenges and seeing if there's opportunities for these individuals that do get stuck at a specific location, if that type of treatment would meet the requirements that they're looking for parole.
Thank you. Why are medical staff, now not nurses or providers, why are they overtime exempt, especially when our facility is looking for volunteers to cover these positions? We have the same training as everybody around the facility. Why is it that case managers and teachers get the overtime, but not us?
So this is an interesting question that I've never been asked before. And I actually had to phone a friend earlier with prison ops to ask about this. So for one point of this, I did get some of the classifications that were listed in this question, and they are overtime eligible. However, in their current classifications, we do not need them for overtime. So therefore, it probably does feel like they're not eligible for overtime. But if they want to work outside of their division, that's more complicated. So we're going to have to research that more internally to see if that's even possible, as the clinical division's budget is separate than the prison ops budget. And I'm completely assuming on this question that this individual wants to work in a correctional series to pick up overtime. So as I mentioned, we'll have to evaluate that internally to see if that's even feasible.
Thank you so much. Let's go over to parole. Our director of adult parole is Keto Best. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
With all of the changes taking place with parole, is there going to be an adjustment period to get used to all the changes?
So I appreciate the question provided. For a more direct response, I believe specificity is paramount so as to respond with the degree of certainty. With respect to this question, it is important to delineate between existing policy, statutory compliance, and new operating procedures. This will aid in determining what changes reflect compliance in comparison to the contrary. For instance, the recent change to temporarily facilitate home contacts involving low-risk parolees at moderate levels, along with a reminder concerning initial and subsequent home contacts when parolees change their address, is a matter of public safety. Communication regarding the increase in parolee employment contacts as to those that are under ISP supervision was corrected via policy to coincide with statute. And finally, and these are again just examples, but the request for uniform completion of CVDMPs regarding non-compliance helps eliminate office inconsistencies as everyone operates in accordance with policy. So again, that's why I say it's important to delineate between existing policy, statutory compliance, and new operating procedures. So perceived changes outside of ensuring compliance with statute or public safety will be granted an adjustment period as appropriate. For those who serve on various working groups looking at multiple changes, again, please assess the issue under consideration accordingly, and where possible, feel free to incorporate that adjustment period as you're making those recommendations for modified changes in policies and procedures. If more information is needed as to specific changes, then please do not hesitate to either reach out to the respective AD, assistant director, or I.
Thank you. With the case levels as high as they are, is overtime going to be an option to ensure the high standards that CPOs have?
So again, I appreciate the commentary with this. For a few weeks now, just to give you a heads up, our staff, the ADs and I have been monitoring caseload sizes throughout the state. While the data does reflect instances of high caseloads, this characterization cannot be applied across the board. For instance, there are multiple offices throughout the state where CPO parolee ratios fall below national standards. In some, and when I say national standards, referring to APPA standards as being discussed within the division. In some non-front range offices, windshield time is considered due to the expectation of home contacts when addressing CPO and parolee ratios. Senior leadership is currently addressing right now caseload ratios involving CPO team leaders and parolees, as we have identified inequities in a few offices. We are also monitoring caseload distribution and reassignments to those CPOs recently returning from post and/or approved leave. And we are assessing overall CPO parolee ratios to determine whether some offices are overstaffed, thus requiring attention to address offices where high caseloads may exist. Where it has been determined that such high caseloads exist and position reassignments alone is not sufficient, the respective manager and AD, at least in one office, I can tell you, have been asked to present a proposal for the purpose of addressing outstanding home contacts, for instance, which may involve a minimal amount of overtime for review and discussion. It should also be noted that we are working with OPA, who has been in continuous contact with Marquis for the purpose of ensuring leadership can run a report which identifies individual CPO caseloads. And that's important because the goal is to be able to provide a breakdown of individual CPO caseload sizes by risk, as the highlights, as this highlights supervision expectations. So obviously, if we did a breakdown of cases and we saw that X officers had low risk cases, then that tells us that, you know, not much expectations are needed compared to those that have a degree of high risk cases assigned to them individually.
Thank you for that answer. Absconders have always been a constant issue. If there was a zero tolerance policy for absconders, meaning they would be revoked after they first abscond, this would really help with case numbers.
So definitely appreciate the suggestion here. You know, as we are aware, the legal act of revocation is a matter for the parole board. Therefore, any zero tolerance policy would be an issue for the parole board. However, in due time, I would encourage a discussion in-house on identifying ways of how we can mitigate the rate of absconders, as research highlights 5 specific themes which drives absconding behavior. Those 5 things in research talks about underlying substance abuse disorder, population-specific barriers, past criminal history, excess conditions of supervision, and at times relationships with the supervising officer.
Thank you, Director. Let's run over to our Business Innovations Group, Director Eddie Cayley. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Rebecca.
When can departments expect ticket fixes in EOMIS? Many tickets have been open for over a year, and some departments have workarounds, but others do not.
Yeah, so thank you for this question, and I assure you we share your concerns. We do have a large backlog of tickets and issues in EOMIS. We're working directly with the vendor to address these. Many production fixes were put on hold due to the prioritization of the parole phase 1 module that we brought online just a couple months ago. We're still working through some issues related to that module release, and we're looking to incorporate production fixes into builds moving forward. If your area does have deficiencies in the system that can't be worked around, please contact our team and we'll work with you to find a solution.
Thank you. Why do we have to use the telestaff portion of UKG for COs only? It makes a mess of comp time payout at the end of the month. We're not even using the rosters appropriately, as they aren't built properly, or they're missing several things with timekeeping. We end up reverting back to the Google Sheets for accuracy. Can we network with someone in Idaho to see how they use UKG?
So thank you for this question. And I know UKG is a source of frustration for many of the departments. Telestaff is used for the correctional officer series and provides advanced scheduling features, including the facility roster, multi-day scheduling, staff movement management, and other things. Telestaff enables all supervisors within custody and control to manage schedules, rosters, and timekeeping for all staff on their assigned shift. This feature isn't available in Workforce Dimensions. Supervisors and staff should not make changes to the Workforce Dimensions schedule for any telestaff employees. For these employees, the only actions in Dimensions should be changing or reviewing time card schedule deviations and actual time punches. Any other changes made in the Dimensions schedule will be overwritten because all schedule changes and pay codes must originate in telestaff for these employees, which may be the reason why you're experiencing the overrides at midnight that you described. Comcash payout has been reviewed repeatedly, and it works accurately when the correct hours are entered into telestaff. Please keep in mind, all pay code changes in the system do require a syncing period. So the time card may not reflect an immediate change, but will update within 24 hours. The current facility rosters were initially set up by facility SMEs, subject matter experts, based on needs at the facility at that time. However, rosters can be updated for any facility at any time by the UKG team. A captain or a major can request these updates by scheduling a meeting or sending an email to our UKG team at doc_UKG at state.co.us. We understand that various states use different versions of UKG to suit their needs, as it is a fully customizable solution. However, this specific version has been determined to meet our security and operational needs in Colorado.
Thank you so much. Why do we use UKG for staff accountability? Can we look into getting something that is specific to employee locations and built with prisons or jails in mind, similar to Jail Corps?
Thank you for this one, and I understand the concern here as well. We've worked with several facilities to ensure that the time to pull these critical rosters are not excessive. What we found is that these reports generally pull in about 3 to 4 minutes, depending on the size of the facility. I actually, before we came into the live chat today, pulled several today just to make sure that they're still operating correctly. And I was able to pull Sterling, the largest facility in the state, in about 3 minutes. I recommend that when facilities mobilize, they immediately initiate pulling these rosters, which was the advice for the previous time clock solution as well. As for an RFID or other solution, those come at considerable cost, and given the current state of the state budget, those options are just cost prohibitive at this time.
Thank you. Let's go back to the inbox real quick. We do have some messages that were just sent in. What's being done to reduce the number of non-COs being posted, which interrupts programs like GED and interferes with case managers assisting in their cases? Let's ask prison operations.
So again, I think this goes back to the earlier question that I answered, and it's one, making sure that we're staffed with the proper number of staff and a relief factor to cover vacancies that are created, one, by additional leave granted to staff. But it's also about supporting each other again, like I said earlier, and staff meeting their work schedule whenever possible. We have to meet a minimum staffing post. So every time somebody's not at work, someone is working an overtime shift. So that is the biggest thing we can do, is help each other out. The department on a whole, if you listen to what we talk about, we're brought up the NIC staffing analysis and are looking at a different relief factor to help us with this.
Thank you. This question is for you as well. It is the understanding of a lot of staff that management teams of several facilities are being allowed to work shifts for overtime at the exact same rate as captains as incentive pay. But at Sterling, they're not being allowed to do this. Granted, our management team is currently minimized by recent events, but at least one of our managers is wanting to work shifts and cover the lack of staffing that we are currently seeing. Why are they not being allowed to help with current staffing issues that we're facing?
So there actually was some inconsistencies in this that was brought up, I believe, about 2 or 3 months ago, and I addressed in the warden's meeting with the wardens. The problem with management level staff working a post is oftentimes, even though they're not at the facility or during their normal business hours, they're tasked with dealing with emergency situations or other issues. So if they're on a post, one, they're either not going to be able to respond to that issue, or if they're responding to that issue, they're not going to be available and ready on that post as they should be, and that's a safety and security issue. And it's causing the other staff members working that post with them to pick up those job duties. So I made the decision that management staff should not be working those posts.
Thank you. Let's jump back over to Director Monday. With C Tower now open and taking offenders here at CCF, we were given new case managers and custody positions. How come clinical services was not giving any extra positions? We're adding a lot of offenders, and our clinical staff does not have the numbers to be successful? Is there a plan to add more clinical staff to CCF?
Okay, great question. We were actually not allocated any additional positions for this initiative. So the positions that are being utilized for case management and custody were taken from vacancies at other facilities. Clinical is unique in that we are using our vacancy to fill agency staff. So we can't take vacant positions that agency staff are in, and we would have to take those from Sterling, and we just don't have the positions available to do that. Also, CCF is one of our best staff facilities in terms of allocation of positions in the department, so there was nowhere to take positions for the clinical piece.
Thank you. Director Karstens, what's the update on the medical record digitalization project at facilities? At Sterling, multiple offices are currently being used to storage medical records, meaning we can't use existing office space effectively.
This is a great question. I'm glad somebody asked this. So we actually just got approval for the starting of this process to digitize the medical records. So we have had a scanning team in place for about 2 years now. They have done an amazing job. They have digitized the entire offender record system dating back decades and have just finished that project. They are now working on some FMS records and VSU, so the Victim Services Unit, and they will be starting in on clinical records early summer, late spring. The project we're projecting will take about 3 years. There is 48,000 records and about 1 million pieces of paper that need to be scanned in and gone through across the department. So we're excited that this has just been approved, and we will start on this project in the next couple of months.
Great. Any news on potentially bringing more CI programs back to Sterling?
Yes, so CI is working actively, really hard to bring businesses back into a number of facilities across the department. We're actually just posting a position today for a new business development individual in CI to help start and bring on new businesses across the state. Sterling is one of the locations that we are looking at adding a shop in some current buildings that are already there, as well as options once the kitchen project is completed up in Sterling. So both.
Thank you. Director Fairbairn, at Sterling, we have multiple areas, including medical offices, where there's no camera systems. When is this getting fixed? This is a safety and security issue.
So every facility every year does a camera plan where they prioritize their cameras based on safety and security needs. So I encourage whoever this is to speak with the facility management team, the warden, and one, escalate this issue so they're aware of what security concerns they believe are in that area, because that may escalate the issue. It may be something that management team has not considered. And then again, like I always say, if they have further concerns that they don't believe are addressed at that level, feel free to reach out to either one of the deputy directors or myself. But our priority is to put cameras based on the highest security need in those areas every year.
Thank you so much. Here's another question. I'll put it up in the air and see who wants to take it. How long can a person be out on leave? Why can't people that are covering for them not be able to get that time? It's not fair to expect a person to do two people's jobs and not be able to do once in a while to get them to be able to stay caught up.
I'm going to jump in, Rebecca. I think that's probably a mixture of a me, HR.
Yeah, it is.
But I think there's a lot of specifics in that would probably be best suited, either if they can give more specifics into it or address at the facility level. I can tell you that if someone has a concern with workload, they should be addressing that with their supervisor and or the management team and using their chain of command. Again, this comes back to when we have a vacancy, we have to fill that. If it's in a custody control post, that's a holdover. Sometimes we have those in administration and people have to pick up extra job duty. And I know as administrators and managers and leaders, we try and do the best we can to disseminate workload, but if it's unfair, it's best to try and address it up through that chain of command. And I know that probably didn't answer that whole question, so that's my best shot at it.
Thank you so much. Here's another one for you. I'm curious if there's anywhere I can go to review the warden's meetings from their monthly meetings.
There is. They are posted, I believe, on the R drive, and I can't tell you specifically where, but we can get a message out to staff to let them know where they are posted, that they are posted for review. I believe they're under meeting minutes.
They're under what? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Meeting minutes. in
Meeting
the R
minutes.
drive.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That is all the questions that we have time for today. I'll give Director Stansel the final words. Director?
Hey, Rebecca, thank you. You know, as I was sitting here listening to the questions and the answers, you know, there's a common theme that comes, and I want to open it up to the entire department to help us solve some of these answers, some of these questions. You know, the question about posting always comes up, always. And you've heard me say this before, I'll say it again. No one in your exec team likes having to post people. Nobody. But as a correctional environment, the number one responsibility is safety for the community, safety for the staff, safety for the incarcerated, safety. And I get that whenever you post outside of custody, it's pulling you away from a job. But if we can't safely open facilities, we have to lock them down. And if they're locked down, they can't get to some of these other areas anyway. Again, it's not what we want to do. It's a necessity. It's a necessary evil. But if there's those out there that have other solutions, I've been doing this for a couple of weekends and holidays, and this is not the first correctional system I've been in, and this is not the first time I've seen posting. We called it different things where I was before. I go to CLA meetings all the time where all of the correction leaders get together from all across the country. And this is a practice that's going on throughout corrections across the country. So, but if there's someone out there that has the magic bullet to it, we want to hear it. We want to hear it because we don't like doing it, but we understand that it's a necessity that we have to do. So the other thing that comes up a lot is budget. So one of the things that Mitch talked about in a meeting, in a chat a while ago is our state budget is so tight that any money we ask for, we have to find offsets for it. Let me explain what that means in simple terms. Like if you're managing your household budget and you need to go and, you know, you have X amount of dollars you need to go buy grocery. You still have the same amount of money coming in, but you need to spend more money on grocery. You need to figure out some other area in your budget where you can take that extra money from to spend on grocery. And just like in a home budget, it is not easy when you're trying to prioritize who gets what. Always number one, always. But when you have a limited amount of dollars and you have a vast amount of responsibilities, all we can do is ask for more dollars. And when we ask for those more dollars, we're constantly being told, if you want, I'm just going to use a number, if you want $2 million over here, where are you going to move it from wherever else in your budget? If your budget is already short, trying to find that location to move that $2 million from is even more challenging. So I don't want anyone to think that we get enjoyment out of posting, we get enjoyment out of saying it's a tight budget, because we don't. Life would be so much easier for everybody in this department if we weren't in this budget crunch, but we are. And the last one I want to talk about is JDC and the hearings. I'm so glad that people are starting to listen to those because I want you to hear what your department is saying. Now, there's some things, we talked about this before, there's some things you may not hear on the mic because there's a layered process that we have to go through to get a budget approval. We don't just go straight from here to JDC. There's several layers that's in between us and submitting something to JDC. So if you don't hear it during the JDC hearing, it's not because we're not asking for it. It's not because we're not thinking about it. It's because at some point between us and the JDC hearing, the item has been denied, and it's been denied in one of these other areas before it gets to JPC, then we can't go and ask for it if someone's already told us no between us and JVC. The other thing I want to caution about JVC is JVC is a very structured conversation, and if you've listened to a couple of them, what should quickly come to your attention is that JVC will always get the last word. That's the way the system is designed. There's times and things that we want to say and we want to push back on, but we may not get the opportunity to do it because it is a structured environment. And sometimes the comments that are made by some of the JVC staff are questionable. Every chance we get to try to correct them on that, we do. But just keep in mind and know that there's politics that play in the JVC world, and I won't go much further than that. But just know your team is fighting for you, whether you hear it on the mic or not. We are fighting for you. So, as always, thank you all for coming on and listening. If you have any suggestions, any ideas, if you have any magic bullets to the problems the challenges that the department is going through right now, we want to hear them. I am very confident that we will get through these challenges like we have through every other challenge, even before my tenure, because we have great staff. We have great staff here, and every opportunity we get as your exec team, we try to make everyone know how great this team is. We do a lot with a little, and we know that. We're always asking for more, but we always get it done, and I appreciate that. I thank you all for pitching in and doing that. There again, posting is not our favorite thing to do, but it's a necessary evil. But if there are answers out there to posting, and here's the other point I'll leave with. Our vacancy numbers have gone down dramatically. We were almost at 1,900 vacancies when I started this job 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. We're now hovering in the 800s. So we've knocked off over 1,000 vacancies in between then. So then the question would be, well, why? Well, if you got 1,000 more people than you had when you first started, then why are we still struggling to staff? Part of that problem, I shouldn't say problem, part of that answer is we have over 36% of our staff in some sort of active leave category. 36% in an active leave category. So that means that of those 1,000, I'm not going to try to do any math, but of those 1,000 that we hired, roughly 360 of them ish are on some sort of leave status. So they're on the books, but they're not filling posts. They're not covering positions because they're out on the leave status. No, I am not saying that to discourage people from using leave. If you legitimately need to leave, if you legitimately need to leave, use your leave, then that's what it's there for. But what I am saying is that there's consequences to all of our actions. So I'm just making that known. There again, this is not to chastise anybody for using their leave status, because I know there are many reasons why people use leave. But I'm just trying to bring some clarity to the issue. If you hire 1,000 and 360 of them can't work, then you're not covering a lot of ground. So I hate ending on bad notes. I hope everyone had a great holiday, but I just thought that it was something that needed to be said. Of course, if you have any questions, any pushback, or anything that I said, feel free to reach out to me, because I'm always willing to engage that. So thank you, Rebecca. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you are doing and everyone who is watching. Our next live chat is February 18th at 11 o'clock. Just a reminder, 1 month there at 11 and the next month there at 3. So until then, have a good day. Thank you.